Hello everyone, welcome to lesson 3-5, graph a line using intercepts. We will continue to address the question, why are graphs helpful? And we will use words such as x-intercept and standard form. Real world link, movies. Mrs. Hodges spent $80 on movie tickets and drinks for her son and his friends. The total cost of X number of movie tickets and Y number of drinks is represented by the equation 8x plus 4y equals 80. Now the 8 represents the cost of the movie ticket, but we don't know how many. So we're just going to multiply 8 times a variable plus the cost of the drinks, but we don't know again how many, equals $80 in total. You can see here that the tickets are $8 and the drinks are $4, but we don't know how many people there are in total. It just says her son and his friends. Okay. Complete the steps below to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So we have 8x plus 4y equals 80. Okay, we're going to multiply the number of tickets we bought times 8 because that's how much it costs, times the number of drinks we bought times 4 because that's how much $4 is each one. And that gives us $80. So how should we start? Well, let's see if we can write this, manipulate this so that we can write it in slope-intercept form, where y equals the slope plus our y-intercept down here. Okay? So how would we do it? We need to isolate the y on this side. Let's start by subtracting the the 8x. And we have to do the same thing to both sides, right? So once I've done that, this is gone on this side, but now it's on the other side, correct? And you can see it right there. Now we just have 4y, you see, 4y equals 80 minus 8x. There it is. Now what do I want to do? Well, now I want to continue to isolate my y, so I'm going to divide both sides by 4. So that when I divide this side by 4, that's gone, the 4 is gone, and I'm just left with y. Okay, and on this side I'm going to divide it by 4. So, as you can see, 80 divided by 4 and negative 8 divided by 4. 80 divided by 4 will be 20. Okay, and negative 8 divided by 4 is going to be negative 2, or minus 2. And there it is. It's written, well, not quite actually. Now we have to just rearrange these numbers so that it's in slope-intercept form. So I will simply just take this value here and put it in front of that 20. So now it's it's y equals negative 2x plus, oh, my x was already there, so I can erase that. No x. Plus 20, right? Follow the order. And there it is. It's written in slope y-intercept. Okay, there's my slope of negative 2. So it's negative 2 over 1. Okay, plus 20. 20 is where my y-intercept will begin. So now let's graph it. My y-intercept, okay, it's 20, so let's find 20. That's where our line's going to cross. There we go. So I'm going to mark that spot right there. Okay, that's my first dot. And then it's negative 2 over 1. We just don't put the 1. So negative 2 is rise over run, don't forget, right? So it's negative 2 over 1. It's the same as my rise over run. Don't forget that, right? So I'm going to rise, or not rise, or go down vertically, negative 2, and I will run positive 1. Okay, so rise, negative 2, 1, 2, and run 1. So there's my next point right there. Okay, my next right there. Okay, so now I will again drop 2 and run 1. There it is. Okay. So that's what my line will look like. Now I can go ahead and draw my line. And it looks like this. So I have a negative slope, okay, decreasing. So now, what does this mean? Well, this means all the possibilities that x and y could be right in here. So for example, what does the point 0, 20 represent right here? 0, meaning we don't move left or right, we just stay at the 0 in the middle, but we do go up to 20. What does that mean? Well, if 0 is x, right, and y is 20, we let y be the number of drinks. So what does it mean then? If you're thinking Mrs. Hodges could buy 20 drinks and no tickets, you are correct. That's what this means, okay? And then it gradually moves down, okay, over here where we have 8 and 4, where she could buy 8. She could buy 8 movie tickets and only 4 drinks, okay? So that's what it means. This is all the possible combinations on this line. Okay, when discussing the slope-intercept form, we want to address the x-intercept. So what is the x-intercept? The x-intercept of a line is the x-coordinate and the point where the graph crosses the x-axis, very similar to the y-intercept. Now this is just a point on the x-axis. Since any linear equation can be graphed using 2 points, you can use the x and y-intercepts to graph an equation. So let's take a look at example 1 so that we can learn how to identify the x-intercept by using the y-intercept. Okay, so state the x and y-intercepts of y equals 1.5x minus 9. So this is slope-intercept form as we know it. Then use the intercepts to graph the equation. As we already know, when we look at this equation, y equals 1.5x plus negative 9. Okay, this is written as slope-intercept, right? You see, we just said plus negative 9. We can now let's let y be 0. So write the equation in the form of y equals mx plus b. That's why we wrote plus and we put the negative 9 in parentheses. And then if we let y be 0, that means, well, we already know this. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. We already know that this is our slope right here, and this is our y-intercept. So we know that our y-intercept is negative 9, right? Now to find the x, we have to let the y here be 0, and now we're going to try to isolate the x. So we just do it where we carry over the 9, the negative 9, to this side, and it becomes positive 9. And we have positive 9 equals 1.5x. Now what we have to do, we want to isolate the x, so we're going to divide both sides by 1.5, as you see there. And that gives us 6 is x, or x is 6. How do we graph that? Well, we already know that our y-intercept is negative 9. Okay, that was given to us. So there's our y-intercept. We go right down to negative 9. And we know that our x-intercept is 6, positive 6. And we put the points there. And then we just draw a line to match the 2 points that run through both points. And that's our slope. If you think you understood that example, please go ahead, pause the video, and try A and B on your own. Pause now. If you haven't paused, please pause now. If you did, and you have already completed A, please watch to make sure that you did it correctly. Okay, we have to, this one's already written, this equation's already written in slope-intercept, where we have our slope and our y-intercept. So our y-intercept has already been given to us. And you can see that it's 5, right? So our y-intercept is 5. Now let's solve for our x-intercept. So we have y equals negative 1/3 x plus 5. We already know that this is our y-intercept. So let's go ahead now then and try to isolate the x so that we can solve. Let's replace the y with 0. Okay, we have 0. So it should look like that, our next step. Okay, that's all I've done. Now let's isolate by inverting this operation, taking the plus 5 and bringing it over to the other side. So it's going to make it now negative 5, right? So negative 5, because over here is plus 5, on this side it's going to be minus 5, right? Equals negative 1/3 x. And now to isolate the x right here, I have to multiply this by the inverse. Technically what I'm doing is I'm dividing it out, but the second step in dividing fractions is multiplying by the inverse. So I'll just jump right to that step. So if I multiply both sides by the inverse, it will be by negative 3 over 1. And on this side, times negative 3 over 1. Right? When I multiply negative 3 times negative 5, I get a positive number. I will get positive 15 equals, these numbers will cross each other out. They cancel each other out. 1 and 1, 3 and 3. So all I'm left with is x. So we just write it out as my x-intercept is 15. Okay, so how would we graph that? Let's go back to the graph where y-intercept is 5. So we just go right up to 5. Okay, on the y, I see that each one of these is 2. 2, 4, 6. So this would be 6, so 5 would be in between the 4 and the 6 there. Okay, so I'll make a dot there, right? And my x-intercept is 15. Again, looks like we're counting by 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and then it jumps to 16, so it's going to have to be right there. I'll make a line right there. And now I just connect the dots with a line, and there's my slope. Okay, simply by identifying my y-intercept and my x-intercept. Let's try B. Okay, for B, again, it's already written in slope-intercept form, so we don't have to move anything around, where I have a slope of negative 3 over 2x and a y-intercept of 3. So let's copy down the y-intercept. And now we have to solve for y equals negative 3 over 2x plus 3. Let's convert the y to 0. Negative 3 over 2x plus 3. Let's bring that 3 over so that we can try to isolate the x that you see right there. Okay, we want to isolate that. So that plus 3 becomes negative 3, right? Negative 3 equals negative 3 over 2x. To get rid of this coefficient, which is being multiplied, we have to divide it out. And the second step to dividing fractions is multiplying by the inverse. So we will multiply by the inverse, okay, which would be negative 2 over 3 on both sides. Negative 2 over 3, right? I cross-reference on this side. And this is 3 over 1. I'm just not bothering with the 1. I'm just not going to write it down because it doesn't change anything. But if I cross-reference right here, okay, I'm left with 1. And now I have negative 2 times negative 1. Okay, it's positive 2. Simply 2. On this side, everything crosses out as well, and I'm just left with x. So my x-intercept is 2. Okay, x-intercept is 2. There we go. I hope you did it correctly. Another way to write these equations is by writing them in standard form. We've been working with slope-intercept, but when an equation is written in the form of a value times x plus another value times y equals a value, another number, this is called the standard form. So it could be, for example, like 3x plus 5y equals, I don't know, 32, any number, right? Where a is greater than or equal to 0, and b, a, b, and c are integers, positive or negative numbers. It is written in standard form. So this is called standard form. We can change standard form to y-intercept or to slope-intercept in order to help us solve and identify what our slope is and our y-intercept. Okay, for example 2, we're going to solve for x-intercept and y-intercept in the standard form. And we're going to do it a little bit easier, where we just let, if we're solving for x, we're going to let y equal 0 or be 0. And if we're solving for y, we're going to let x be 0, as you can see here. For example, 60, and remember that these are all the ranges. Let's just say that I was not counting on there being a y value. Like if I take away the y value, then I'm saying the maximum number of x I can have times 60 is this value here. Okay? That's if y is 0. That means that's the maximum number that it could be x's. And when I do it the other way and I make x 0, the maximum number that I can have of y times 15 would give me this product. Okay, so my range would be right there. Okay, that's my range is what I solve here. This would be my range where the highest value of x I can have is 79, and where the highest value of y I can have is 316. And I hope that makes sense. If not, please ask me in class. So again, you just follow the step. Let y be 0. 15 times 0 is 0. So now I have 60x equals 4,740. Divide both sides by 60, and I get x equals 79. On this side, I have 15y equals 4,740. Divide both sides by 15. Again, to get rid of the 15, right? You divide both sides by 15. And when you divide both sides by 15, you get y equals 316. Now let's take that information and let's interpret it by using a graph. So we found that the x-intercept is at the point 79, 0, right? Where 79 is x and y is 0. This means they can sell 79 print yearbooks and 0 digital yearbooks to earn 4,000. So the highest amount of print yearbooks can be 79 with 0 digital books. And the other range where all the highest number of digital books I can have would be 316 and 0 prints. You see, so 0 prints yearbooks and 316 digital yearbooks to earn 4,740, where x would be 0 and y would be 316. So when I graph that, then I have right here my x goes all the way to 79, while my y goes up to 316. And then I draw a line, and these are all the different possibilities that I can have in terms of how many print and yearbooks I can have. These are all the different combinations of numbers that I can have so that it always equals 4,740. Okay, here's an example. If you think you can do it on your own, please pause the video now and try C all on your own. Pause now. Okay, if you pause the video, please watch through now to see if you did it correctly. Okay, Mr. Davis spent $230. This is the total on lunch for his class. Sandwiches Y cost $6. Okay, we don't know how many sandwiches, but they each cost $6. And drinks Y cost $2. We don't know how many drinks, but we know that they each cost $2. This can be represented by the equation $6 for sandwiches plus $2 for drinks is going to give me a total of $230 when I'm able to determine how many sandwiches I can buy and how many drinks I can buy to keep it equal to this value. Use the x and y-intercept to graph the equation, then interpret the intercepts. Okay, again, we can solve this by giving a value of 0 to each one. So for example, I'm going to just do 6x equals 230 to solve for x, and I'm going to do 2y, okay, another one that would be 2y equals 230. I simply eliminated, for this one I eliminated the y factor, and this one I eliminated the x, because I multiplied them by, I just replaced the x on this one with 0, and over here I replaced the y with 0. So this is, I just skipped one step, essentially. Now I can go ahead and divide both sides by 6, okay? On this side, it gets rid of the 6's, right? So I'm left with x. And how many 6's are in 230? Well, 38 by my count. I have 38 of them with 2 left over 6, or 38 and 1/3, right? That is my x value, 38 and 1/3. What about for y? Y, I divide both sides by 2, okay, and I get y equals 115. Okay, so this is the maximum amount of drinks I can buy, and this is the maximum amount of sandwiches I could buy, 38 and 1/3. We could just say 38 because nobody's going to buy 1/3 of a sandwich. So we have right there our y-intercept of 115 and our x-intercept of 38 and 1/3. I wrote 1/3 as a decimal, so just to simplify my equation. So now I can go ahead now and graph this. Y is 115. I would put it, this 110 right in between there. 115 would be closer to the 120, about there. And 38 and 1/3, I'm jumping here by 5, so 38 would be just about here, right? Up about again. And then I can draw my line. Okay. Right, matching the dots, just like that. So what does all this mean? Well, let's write it right here. This means the x-intercept of 38 1/3 means that if 38 1/3 sandwiches and 0 drinks were purchased, the total cost would be $230. The y-intercept of 115 or 115 means that if 0 sandwiches and 115 drinks were purchased, the total cost would be $130. So the maximum $230, sorry. The maximum amount of drinks I can buy is 115 with 0 sandwiches. And the maximum number of sandwiches I can buy is 38 1/3 with 0 drinks. Okay, so that means that my range of all the different numbers, possibility of combinations, is right in here, as you can see. Okay, please take a look at the guided practice so that you feel comfortable with it. Let me zoom in. Okay, so you can see it carefully and you can pause. Okay, and take a look at that. If you have any questions, please come to class with your questions. That's it for today, everyone. See you in class.